These kids come in, their bones are abnormal everywhere, but their legs are what hurt. So the doctors get fixated on the bones, and they stick with the bones. Now, right at this time, the doctors are still in possession of an idea vitamins are the way we will make a normal, healthy human population. We were still interested in vitamins at this time. The doctors start making an animal model for rickets. They take rats, they narrow their diet until they have funny bones. Then they start adding back things from their diet till their bones grow normally again. Oops, the rats are nocturnal animals. They don't go out in the sun. Now, I just told you every animal on the planet uses this. What does that imply? If you were able to find a way to make your vitamin D receptor such that you could find a chemical that was kind of like vitamin D in fungus on wheat, all of a sudden you've got the entire night to creep around and eat people's stuff. And they're all sleeping. That is a really cool niche. That'll mean you get to reproduce, you get to do things, no one's there to kill you, you don't have any natural predators. You can go in those ships, it's completely dark down there, and you can survive just fine. Why do we like rats and mice as scientific animals? Because you can put them in a cage and keep them in a house their whole life. They don't need UVB light. You can give them food that has UV-like stuff. It actually grows on fungus. It's D2. What's weird about this? We doctors are still giving out D2. D2 is not what any of us make. D2 is what rats use. We got it in our head that because we found it in the food, oh, it's a vitamin. But the weird part is, even though they named it a vitamin, and they named it vitamin D because C had just been described, the first two chemicals they found on this fungus were 1 and 2, and then they couldn't find it on humans. And they gave chickens this stuff, this D2, and they didn't like it very much. Their bones didn't do very well. Then they find D3 on pig skin, and from then on, they're doing all this D3, but they still get it in their head. It's a vitamin. Vitamin means my cell needs this chemical. I can't make it, therefore I have to get it from my environment. This is not that. This is a hormone. We make it. It's not in the environment anywhere except for cod liver. When they found this stuff, the only place they could find it on the whole planet was cod liver. That's why everybody in the 40s and 50s and 60s got cod liver oil. Now, the weirdest part of all of this is they still say it's a vitamin, but it's not in the food, and we make it ourselves. What? They still can't get their head around the fact this is a hormone. If you tell lay people this is a hormone, what are the two things you think? Has effects all over my whole body. I need to know what my level is. This is pivotal to why the scientific studies, they've shown that they're all related. The next part is, how do I make the patients better? The dose is now the key. Why is this important in cardiology? One article after another, all the things that Dr. Perkins just showed you about sleep deprivation, exactly the same articles. Vitamin D deficiency causes blah, blah, blah. Metabolic syndrome, atherosclerosis, and all these are prominent, well-respected medical journals now. Diabetes, atherosclerosis, animal family medicine. All of these are now the big-time journals, but only in the last 5 years have these started to creep through. Every single aspect of artery health. Why do we get abdominal aortic aneurysms in people who also have heart disease? Why do we have blown arteries in the groin with somebody who just developed a big hole in their heart? These things are all related to one another through the fibroblasts. The fibroblasts have vitamin D receptors. So it's not by accident that we have people with peripheral vascular disease and diabetes and hypertension. Number one, they don't sleep, so they don't repair their body. But number two, vitamin D has a lot to do with the health of multiple areas of the body. So all over the place, and this is particularly interesting. Back in 1991, I forgot the authors, but this is a Dr. Stumpf article that shows that the atrial natriuretic peptide that's made in the atrium of the heart has vitamin D receptors on it. Fascinating that my patients with vitamin D deficiency, their leg swelling goes away. And what's even creepier, you get the vitamin D up too high, over 100, the swelling comes back, just as bad. So like every other hormone, go too low, get screwed up, go too high, get screwed up also. And I'm a little worried that there are some of my patients out there that I got them a little too high and they had an event of heart failure. I haven't had anybody that I proved that in yet, but this is directly related to vitamin D. You'll also find that the BNP that we measure, that's related to this as well. BNP is another similar to the atrial natriuretic factor. My personal feeling is that we've made these statins over the last 30 years in response to the fact that there's been high cholesterol because there's been a vitamin D deficiency. If you go back to the population and the timing of the things that we started, all you have to do really is watch television. As you watch television for 3 hours, every single drug you see advertised related to plugging a hole that is developed because of this. So epidemiology, that's great. What the doctors want to see is, okay, how do you cure my patients? They're both there. A and B are both there. Does A cause B? Here's the problem. You have to understand the concept that this is not a vitamin, it is a hormone. Many of the articles that I'm reading, they don't understand that yet. One of my journal articles in neurology, the first time a vitamin D articles hit the neurology, June, took patients to 30,000, 40,000 international units a day. I was really excited about it because I was given 20,000. I thought, great. They take the patients all the way to 40,000 a day, no toxicity. Turns out they're wrong about that toxicity. It is absolutely there, and I'm going to teach you what happens, but they don't understand the basic concept. It's not the dose, it's the level, okay? So the cure is the sleep. That's why this particular presentation is so important. I don't care about vitamins. I care about what Chuck Perkins taught me. Sleep is what cures all of us. Then the next question was, what can I do to fix all these people whose sleep is all screwed up? And I dump into this stuff. Sleep is still the answer. You get excited about D, you go too high, the sleep gets screwed up on the top end. So I spent most of August being in a cranky mood with lots of back pain, feeling like my balance was off and my legs were giving way, like all my patients tell me. And it turns out my vitamin D level was too high. It was only 95, but it was too high. Off of that for 6 weeks, I'm feeling chipper, running in the morning again, feeling good. So it turns out that the thing I want you to take from this is it's the sleep that cures the patient. Every single hospital in this country is set up for the doctor's convenience. We wake up our patients to do an x-ray at 3 a.m. We draw their blood at 4 a.m. We bathe them at 5 a.m. That is ridiculous. These people are at the lowest ebb of their physical strength, and what do? We come in and we interrupt their sleep, we poke them with pins, we introduce infectious agents, and we can't understand why they don't get better. This is very odd, and now the next phase of medicine is going to be, oh, when the patient comes in the hospital, let's protect their sleep. All the night nurses are very interested in this vitamin D material. Okay, and here's the dosing part. I went to FDA recommended dosing when I wrote what the people were supposed to do, because I don't care about vitamins. So every night I'm writing these little notes saying, take 1,000 international units of vitamin D. That's what the FDA says. So I come back in January. I've read all the stuff I told you about. I only knew a little bit of it at that time. And I come back all excited. I think, oh, we're going to cure the headaches. I'll be able to go home in a normal hour. My husband will stop yelling at me. I come back. Nobody's better. And these women that I'm seeing the first 2 weeks, they're not wearing CPAP because they didn't have sleep apnea. They just can't sleep. And they're all cranky. They want a divorce. And they have daily headache. And I said, well, wait a minute. Are you taking that vitamin D? Yeah. I think, well, this is weird. You know, how come those 2 guys with the CPAP got better and these didn't? So then I measured their vitamin Ds again. They're all 10 points lower. Most of them are 25 to 28. Some of them are really low. But they're all 10 points lower. And at this point, I freak out and think, oh my goodness, my friend Marissa is pregnant. She just went through 10 years with 5 miscarriages trying to get pregnant. She's never been able to sleep. This is what's wrong with her. And she's on a prenatal vitamin with 400 international units in it. Half what these women are taking. They're not even pregnant. Their levels just fell by 10 points in 4 months of winter. Just by complete accident, I happened to time this perfectly. Because if I had done it in the summer, it wouldn't have come out this way. They would have gone up. So it turns out nobody got better. So I say, well, golly, we've never really had a symptom to follow with vitamin D before. I give you some vitamin D and I say, hey, how your bones doing? I don't know. They're okay, I guess, you know. With this one little idea that these 2 guys come back and say, hey, could the sleep be related to this? I say, okay, take 2,000. Ooh, it sounds like a lot to me. Take 2,000, call me back in a week and tell me how your sleep is. And I start to take 2,000 because I'm pretty cranky in February. And I think, you know, I've thought about having a divorce in February. I wonder what my D level is, you know? I'm not even taking any vitamin D, and my level was 35. I bet it's like 25 or less, and now that I think about it, I get up 5 times a night. You know, I cough, I get up in the middle of the night. I think my sleep is normal. So I start to take 2,000, and it turns out nothing really happens. The sleep doesn't get better. Nobody's level goes up. So then in February, I'm in Mexico lying on the beach, and I get into the internet and I find this place called the Vitamin D Council. Vitamin D Council is a bunch of doctors who've been doing this much longer than I. They've been trying to encourage the FDA to increase the recommended dose to 10,000 a day. Now, I happen to think that would be extraordinarily wrong, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But they say 10,000 a day is what you need to stay the same. Well, I've got patients in there who've had daily headache for 20 years, and they do not want to stay the same. So if 10,000 a day is enough to stay the same, what do we need to give to get them to a higher level? And then the next question is, what's the right level to have normal sleep? If it says 30 to 100, does that mean, I don't know, 32 is as normal as 82? So I'm wandering around, not knowing at all what to do. So I say, well, what's the most we can make on our skin? We all make 20,000 on our skin, middle of the day, middle of the summer. Depending on the skin type you have, you make it slower or faster. Turns out that your skin color has a lot to do with how fast you make this. That means if you pick someone up from the equator, remember that little graph where he showed you that people who had normal weight but were from Oriental or Black or Mexican extraction, they had a higher incidence of sleep disorders? You pick up somebody who is actually genetically made to be at the equator, and you move them someplace like here where it's so hot in the summer that we all go indoors. It turns out it takes them 8 hours to make the same amount of D that I might make in a half an hour. That's kind of a scary thought. So I start giving 20,000. Now, I would not recommend that anyone in this room take 20,000, okay? You have to be extremely respectful of this chemical. It's very powerful, but I was given 20,000, and most people have no side effects. But you have to be very careful for how long you do that and why you're doing it, okay? So you give back 20,000, you get to 60 and 80, and it turns out it's not 30 to 100. My level only went to 95. I was miserable for 6 weeks. You go above 80, things start to go bad. So that published level, 30 to 100, not right. For perfect sleep, it's 60 to 80. So the right dose, if you want to give it yourself or give it to your patients, you start with whatever you're comfortable with, and then you get your D level done 2 months later, and you see what happened. And keep in mind, it's different in the winter than in the summer, and it depends on how much sun you've had, okay? There's also two concepts here. One is, how do I get from a level of 15, which is what all the patients you take care of in the hospital, that's where their levels are running, except for 3 West B, where they got hit by a car, okay? That person did not come in the hospital because they have a low vitamin D. I've actually had one patient I've seen in the last 6 months who got shot with a shotgun. That person did not have a vitamin D deficiency. But all the people who get sick and wind up in your hospital beds, this is one of the things that's in the background that leads to that. So if you're going to get to normal sleep, that's what's going to change the disease. Unfortunately, it may take another 5 years before somebody really gets a handle on this, because my idea, there's one article that was just written this year. A guy in Shreveport just wrote that one of his African American patients changed her sleep disorder with vitamin D. That's the first article to hit the PubMed. This is going to take a while before people get a handle on that. What that's going to mean is all the doctors who, by the way, are not in this room, what you'll notice is a lot of caregivers, but very few doctors here, okay? Just like me, they think they know everything, all right? So they don't come in and they don't hear this. That means they get the idea, oh, Dr. Gomanak's crazy about vitamin D. No, I was crazy about sleep way before that. All my patients got sleep studies. They all got CPAP. This is the thing that makes them better, and they're happier about this than they are the CPAP, I'll tell you. It's the sleep that cures the disease, and if you go too high, the sleep disorder comes right back. I started waking up with this weird jaw pain. I wake up in the middle of the night, my jaw's doing all this weird stuff. I would never have noticed that, except I spend every day telling my patients, if you hurt somewhere in the morning, it's because you're not getting perfectly paralyzed at night. That means that these effects are almost invisible to the patient and to the doctor. Unless you're a sleep expert, you're not looking there, you will not know the difference. Okay, the FDA recommendations have to do with a population. Here's the big weird part. It should never have gone to the FDA. This is not a vitamin. This is a hormone. It's a hormone that runs all of our other hormones.